Apothecary Podcast. Authentic chat about medicines, pharmacy and healthcare in the UK.
Pharmacist Jamie, Gimmo and STC take on topical and controversial stories but keep it edgy yet light-hearted.
Pod guests share their desert island drugs and joyful patient stories.
Welcome to the Oral Apothecary Podcast. My name is Jamie Hayes. Coming up in today's episode, we're joined by Chris Martin. Chris is a pharmacist by trade and is currently chairman of Life Sciences Hub Wales, along with a whole host of other roles. We will welcome Chris in a moment as he shares his desert island drug, his career anthem, and recommends a book for the Oral Apothecary Library. We're back on familiar ground with our micro-discussion this episode as we look at the recent Department of Health and Social Care report on overprescribing. Good for you, good for us, good for everybody. Snappy. A plan to reduce overprescribing to make patient care better and safer, support the NHS and reduce carbon emissions. A big hello to all our listeners across the globe, but a special welcome to our new listeners in Kuwait. Welcome. Thank you for all your support. Let me welcome my two fellow apothecaries. STC is in Bournemouth and Gimmo is in Cardiff. Welcome both.
Good evening.
Evening.
Do you think those people in Kuwait can get some petrol? bit tight in Cardiff at the moment. So yes, some great feedback on last week's episode. For those who aren't listening in order, it was the menopause episode, and probably had more feedback on that we've had in a long time. So it shows this a really important topic, something that touches everyone at some point in their lives. On a personal note, I did the Car 10 the other weekend. That's Cardiff to Tenby bike ride, so 107 miles, so that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. It was nice to do a big event after 2 years out. I was really pleased with my time, and then I heard about another pharmacist who'd done it. So I wanted to give a massive shout out to Mark Allen. He's a practice pharmacist, I think in Cardiff, Jamie. He's someone in 2015 was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and he crossed the finish line in 4th. So he must have absolutely hammered it. So well done, Mark. That's just incredible.
Made you
put me to shame.
Whatever you did, I'm sure you did very well.
7 hours, and I think he must have been well below that.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I've got back into live music, which has been an absolute pleasure after the whole COVID pandemic. So my wife and I went to see Elbow on Sunday night. They were magnificent. I'm seeing the Manic Street Preachers a week on Sunday. And I know Paul's going to see this band as well, but in keeping with what has become one of our new job descriptions, boys, I'm going to see public service broadcasting at the end of the month. So I'm very excited, love my music. And it reminds me actually that when we were having our little chat after the Series 2 wash-up, and we were saying we must remind people, because somebody asked us on Twitter, that if you're interested in the music that each of the guests has picked, if you actually go to Spotify, you can search Oral Apothecary and the playlist is actually there because somebody asked us. So it's all there, all laid down track by track. What have you been up to, Jane?
Well, I did the Cardiff Bay 10K on the weekend, and interestingly, I ran round with our guitarist who is recovering from acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And so we ran round together, and very pleasant it was too. Cardiff Bay, bathed in sunshine, so that was great. Just to reiterate Gimmo's point really, the feedback that we've had on Twitter and through our networks on episode 1 of series 3 certainly created some great discussion points with lots of people and lots of middle-aged men, I have to say, as well, which is really impressive. We commented on public service broadcasting, didn't we? And so that's the connection. I attended the RPS pharmacogenomics thing on Tuesday evening. That was very good as well. So that was Ravi, right? Ravi and colleagues from Scotland, England and Wales. We may come on to some of these things now with our guest tonight, just bringing us up to speed with the pharmacogenomics agenda.
Just to remind any new listeners, if you haven't heard it, I should say, we have got a episode with Ravi Sharma about pharmacogenomics. So it's worth looking for. It's on series 1.
And it's something we will need to revisit, I think.
So do you want to give a name check to the guitarist, Jamie?
Well, it's Jamie.
You mean the guitarist that does the music to the beginning and the end of the Oral Apothecary?
That's right. And he'll be listening, as will my other parkrun chums.
Okay, so it gives me great pleasure to introduce Chris Martin. Chris is a pharmacist by profession, as Jamie mentioned, and at heart, I think. Another graduate of Cardiff who built 2 successful community pharmacy businesses in the West Country and in God's own country of Pembrokeshire. Chris has worked extensively across the public sector with roles such as chairman of Hywel University Health Board and the Welsh NHS Confederation. He's currently chairman of the Life Sciences Hub in Wales Wales and recently appointed chairman of the Bevan Commission, with an interest in innovation and end-of-life care. On top of this, he is chairman of the Port of Milford Haven and a non-exec advisor on the board of Allianz Healthcare, and he has several voluntary and charitable roles, including one with Marie Curie UK. I've been lucky enough to work with and for Chris a number of times in my career, and so I'm really excited to talk to him because I've seen firsthand the passion he has for his career, patient care, but I know that he's never sort of left or forgotten pharmacy as well. So Chris, thanks for finding time amongst all of that to come on and talk to us. How are you, and what's on your agenda at the moment?
Well, thanks very much, Paul, and great to be with you. Real pleasure. And I've known Jamie and yourself for many years, and Steve, I feel as though I know you quite well through the podcasts. I think it's fair to say I was an early adopter of the oral apothecary, yeah? And it's been an absolute joy. And actually, I just realised we've got a little bit of a link to Milford Haven with your dad and running pharmacies in that town. In fact, I've listened to your podcast, washing the car, driving the car, actually painting the fence. So it's been great. And I'm really pleased to be here today. So what am I doing? Well, look, the joy of having a portfolio career means that I'm busy doing different things on different days. So you mentioned a couple of those. Let me just share with you some of the highlights. So Port of Milford Haven, we've got two massive regeneration projects, £120 million going into Milford Haven. You'll be chuffed with that, Steve. We're trying to make Milford Haven a destination itself. And then we've got Pembroke Dock Marine, which is part of the Swansea Bay City deal, a city centre of excellence, I should say, for marine renewable technology and floating offshore wind. Looking at general sustainability of our transport for future generations, decarbonisation, alternative fuels to hydrocarbons, and who knew that there were 4 different types of hydrogen? It's great to be a chemist, yeah? And then in the Life Sciences Hub Wales, well, we're working on an exciting 5-year plan that embraces innovation, finds solutions for challenges facing the NHS, drives system change, transformational change, along with our partners in the life science sector and stakeholders. So lots going on. Interestingly, Jamie, UK Life Science Vision was just published only a few weeks ago. There will be billions spent on life sciences across the UK over the coming years. So something to be maybe aware of, and a topic that you might want to reach out to in the future. And then, of course, the Bevan Commission, which is very close to my heart. We had our plenary meeting today, which I was pleased to chair, and we've just got a new cohort of Bevan exemplars. These are people on the front line with innovative ideas to try and change the way that we deliver services to patients. So a real inspiration. So lots going on, and the joy of having a portfolio career.
So some outside of Wales might not know what the Bevan Commission is?
The Bevan Commission is an international think tank. So we were set up originally as a ministerial advisory group for the then Health Minister in order to provide advice and support on policy regarding health and social care within Wales. And we've picked up a bit more of an international focus as well. So I think we might even be better known internationally than we are in our home country, but very much an international think tank.
So, Chris, is it very similar to the King's Fund in England?
Similar, very, very similar, yeah. And we do commissions on behalf of the Health Minister. In fact, the Health Minister just asked us to look at a COVID registry at the moment, for example. And not that we will set it up, but how best to set one up within Wales. Probably the first out of the starting blocks. A lot of people talking about COVID registries, but actually we're probably going to be the first country to deliver on that. So lots going on, and the opportunity to provide advice and support on a number of issues. So we do work with health boards, we do work with regional partnership boards, and try and find a way of helping and supporting driving best practice and delivering better patient outcomes and such like.
For the Bevan Commission then, Chris, what are the medicine and therapeutic exemplars that have come through over the last 4 or 5 years?
Well, we've had some great pharmacists involved. Well, just across the board, lots of pharmacists being involved. Specific topics around looking at good practice of prescribing. In fact, the reason I was stumbling a little there, I was just thinking we had Mark Torbert on recently. He was a Bevan exemplar, would you believe? Yeah, and very much part of the Bevan Commission. So we've had many pharmacists. The latest one was looking at the opportunity of how you needed to make sure that you had a good system and process in place for medicines optimization, for example. And that was something to behold. It was looking at end-to-end and the patient journey, and how then in turn we could make sure. It's going to link into the discussion we're going to have a little bit later on, isn't it?
A theme that cuts through what you're currently interested in is innovation. It's really interesting to hear about the innovation in things like decarbonisation, because that's something that's big on the topic of medicines as well. So how do you think pharmacy is doing at the moment in terms of innovation?
I think there's loads of innovation out there. There's loads of opportunity. We've just got to make sure that we embrace this. That my heart is within community pharmacy, but we have to make sure that community pharmacy drives forward on that innovation agenda. And until we change things like the contract and make sure that we can drive things forward in a different way, i.e. to promote clinical services, to drive forward better ways of working. I think we're looking in Wales, aren't we, that we have Andrew Evans heading things up, and it does feel like we're moving towards more clinical services. And when you look at then how pharmacists embrace that opportunity, there are great examples of innovation. And I'm very proud of what many of our pharmacists are already achieving across South Wales.
So, that whole world of, like you're obviously wrapped up in relation to Bevan, and as you say, in England we've got Kingsford and also the Health Foundation as well. One of the things that we also talk a lot about on here is that of course you need innovation, but actually how do you get the average to move? And actually, so I'm really interested in and I think it was the Health Foundation that did a really good paper about spread. In other words, how do you help the spread? And so it's not so much the innovator, because the innovators will always exist, and it's how do you get the adapters to get the same level of enthusiasm and the same level of trust around the team that they're doing. That's the bit I'm interested in. How do you, so if you've got any wise words for any listener around transformational change, you used the term earlier, but it's the spread, isn't it? Not the innovation.
So this is probably the most difficult part. So
yeah, sure it is.
Individual clinicians have some fantastic ideas, and to get spread and scale, even within health boards, for example, within Wales, or indeed across health boards, has always been a massive challenge. We've just done some work within the Bevan Commission specifically on spread and scale. And what we've tried to do is make sure that we have the champions, who are those individual clinicians who've got their ideas, to then visit the other health boards and empower those people within those health boards to make things happen, so that we actually drive forward that spread within that health board and make sure that they then go away with all those great ideas. And it seems to be working, but it means that you've got to put some hard yards in to help and support individuals. And then as you empower those individuals, how do you make sure that those individuals become your ambassadors, if you like, and your champions? Then that spreads further within that health board, and on it goes. If it was easy, Steve, we'd all be doing it, wouldn't we?
Sure, yeah.
And I think the thing I like about the Bevan exemplars and the way they're supported is it's a programme where they're taught the skills of spread and behaviour change and improvement and things like this, so that they can then go and apply it and be those champions. It's not the sort of, I think traditionally when we look at spread, we think all we have to do is cut and paste what happens here and do it over there. And it doesn't work, does it? If you sort of empower people and teach them, I suppose, how to fish as opposed to give them a fish, it encourages spread much more.
That's the old Chinese proverb, isn't it?
Look, we wrap things around them to make them better individuals and give them techniques of how they can deliver more effectively going forward. And they come out of the process being better people. I always remember somebody saying to me that being a Bevan exemplar has made me a better person. And that is just fantastic in the way that we support these individuals.
Bold claims.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, Chris, I just realised you used one of the terms that's not allowed. You used going forward.
Oh, no.
That's a no-no on this podcast.
Okay. I thought you were going to say empowered. That would be
No, we like empowered, but going forward is a complete no-no.
Yeah, we say about 3 times an episode, but we still call each other out on it.
I never use that term. If I ever heard
Absolutely you don't.
Tell me. Amazing.
I do podcasts for the Life Science Hub Wales, so I'll make sure we'll never use that again. Thank you for that.
Look, Chris, one of the bits of feedback we've had from our informal editorial board, they know who they are. They've said, look, the guests we have on are, people that have sort of been there, done it at the peak of their powers often. And they've said, what about having, younger, foundation pharmacists, junior doctors on? What advice and career, tips would you give our younger foundation pharmacists and junior doctors that are listening?
So, well, I have one of those in my family. As you're aware, we're a family of pharmacists. So my daughter's a pharmacist. She's just qualified as a clinical pharmacist, gone through the clinical diploma and enjoyed that immensely. I think you've got to have a passion for what you want to do. And you've got to feel as though you're making a difference and that you're valued and that you're able to make a contribution as part of a team. I've always felt that it's better to be part of that team driving forward. So ensuring that you know your part, that you play within that team, that you're valued as part of that, and you're all going in the same direction. Dare I say, multidisciplinary teams are an area where I think that things really come through. My daughter comes home with fantastic stories of where she's been in an MDT, where she's been able to make a contribution. She's been valued for her clinical knowledge, and in turn has helped that patient. That's tremendous.
Sounds very encouraging. Thank you. I've
been lucky enough to work in roles outside of pharmacy, but what I've always found is as soon as someone finds out that you're a pharmacist, they jump all over you in any clinical setting. I think sometimes when you're in your pharmacy bubble, you don't realise how valued we are as a profession by other professions.